powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to the Science Edit, the podcast that breaks down the trickiest parts of science and helps you get it right when it matters most. I'm Miss Lima, and I'm here to support you with the science you need when you need it. Whether you're revising for exams, exploring future careers, or just trying to figure out why your last test didn't go so well, you're in the right place. Let's dive into our next episode. In this episode, I'm joined by Albie, Daniel and Alex, 3 Year 7 students, and they're going to talk about what it's really like starting science at secondary school, what they expected, what's gone well, and what they've learnt along the way. From lab safety to practicals, routines to revision. They'll be sharing honest reflections and helpful tips on how to get the most out of your science lessons. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome.
Oh, hello, miss.
Hello.
So I guess the first thing to really start with would be first impressions of secondary school. I mean, what did you expect science to be like when you started?
Well, for me, I thought it would be all action, Bunsen burners, colour changes, explosions. And it was really did meet my expectations, but still was sort of civilised enough to be able to feel like you'd actually made progress.
Personally, for me, I was expecting it to be a huge change from the primary school book, doing a much more exciting practicals and just being generally a more fun experience.
I agree with both their points, as when I joined secondary, I expected a lot more practicals and a lot more exciting stuff to do.
So that was your expectation. What was the reality of it?
Well, I think the reality was very much the same in the fact that lots of experiments, and they really were full-on, hands-on, white-knuckle rides. They were absolutely brilliant. But still, you had to do the conclusions, the hypothesis, and all the the technical stuff. But it was still sort of mixed very well with the actual dynamic of the whole lesson.
Personally, for me, I found it went above and beyond my expectations. I really enjoyed science this year.
So lovely to hear.
I agree with Albie's point, it's gone above my expectations. I've enjoyed science throughout every lesson I've done. When I first came and last lesson I had, every lesson has just been enjoyable, just fun and over the expectation I've been thinking of.
I think most students have that kind of fun aspect that they expect, but obviously the number one priority in a science lab is safety. So can you just go over what some of the safety rules that you have to remember and which ones you think are really important?
Safety rules, like when you're doing experiments, always tuck your tie in and also tuck your chair in and put your bags on your desk. That can be really hazardous if you don't do that, because if you fall over and you've got a glass in your hand, for all I know that might have iodine or something else really toxic in there, that could really be a danger hazard to the whole lab and put all students in the lab at risk. One
safety rule that I found that's really been quite key in most practicals is to always attend your Bunsen burner, because it's a fire hazard, so you just need to be safe. My key safety rule is never unattend a source of fire.
Another Bunsen burner safety rule is whenever you're not using your Bunsen burner, you want to make it so it's orange and not blue, as if it's blue, people may not see it and go touch it or even trip and fall in it. And the blue flame is really, and I mean really hot. So yeah, just keep it orange when not using it.
So obviously accidents do happen. Have you ever seen an accident, and what did you learn from that in the lab?
Someone was walking along and tripped with the glass. There was nothing in the glass, just water or something, but it smashed. There's glass all over the floor. Yeah, the teacher had to come and clear it up. But it was a very it happened so fast, but I think on the whole it was just some glass. But yeah, it's still good to clear it up.
Over the course of this year, I've seen someone get burned. I've learnt from that to take all the precautions around something that's hot and to just be generally careful, because some things can be really hot and it can cause physical harm.
And I don't think anyone gets burnt on purpose. I think it's just maybe they've not realised that something is as hot as they thought it might be. So that's something to be really aware of as well.
Another accident I saw was someone turned on a Bunsen burner without the flame on and just walked off. And that's really dangerous because the gas, if there's a flame near it, it could just set alight and it could cause the fire alarm to go off.
I think one of the main things is that to recognise for Year 7 students is that accidents can happen, and actually if you see something dangerous that's going on around you, then you should say something either to the person that's doing something dangerous or to let a teacher know as well, because actually that's kind of like the best way to deal with something that is dangerous. Going back to practicals, because obviously that is a big aspect of science, what's the first experiment that you remember doing?
Well, before secondary school, the first experiment I ever did was the sort of effect that the length of shadows on different objects, like a glue stick, for example, or a ruler, they would all have different lengths of shadows, and we learnt that through a torch. It was underwhelming and monotonous, but overall, I think it was a good experience.
When I was at primary school, we grew chicks in reception, and
wow.
we went through all of the growth of the chicks and we monitored them, and that's the real first practical science aspect I remember doing.
My first experiment was kind of like Albie's, but instead of chicks, we grew butterflies, and the teacher walked us through the stages of a butterfly, how it goes from a caterpillar to a butterfly, and it was a nice experience to see, as the butterflies, when they grew, they were all colourful, and we all talked about how nice they looked.
So in terms of secondary school, what's your favourite piece of equipment you've used so far in science lessons?
Well, might be a little bit controversial, but I like the really long, meaty scissors. They're brilliant. I feel like I have a lot of power in my hands. So yeah, but that's just personal opinion.
I've enjoyed using the Bunsen burners, especially in chemistry practicals. If you heat something up, what it can actually achieve and how different chemicals react to heat, and it's really fascinating.
I agree with Albie's point, as my favourite is Bunsen burners, as there's a wide variety of ways to use it and what could happen.
In terms of your classwork, science books can be quite different in the way that you take notes, and obviously you've got practical work as well in there. What kind of tips can you give to help keeping your science book neat and revision friendly?
I think use columns in your book. I mean, you don't have to draw a line down the middle of the page, but if you're doing revision and you're comparing two things like positive and negative, definitely have one side of the same page for positive and then the other side of the same page for negative. Because that way you get the best of both worlds. You can see what one is and isn't.
Personally, for me, I found that we do a lot of graphs at the practical work, so a big tip from me is always draw graphs in your book, because it displays your data neatly and it is very, very revision friendly.
What keeps my book neat and revision friendly is probably laying it out in paragraphs and just making it so I understand it more clearly.
In terms of routines, what kind of routines did you quickly get used to in your science lessons that are possibly different to maybe other subjects?
Well, for me, it was as simple as come in, sit down, book out, date, underline, do the starter, assuming of course there is one, and just be ready for when the title is given and the objective of the lesson is clear.
One routine I quickly got used to is when we got numbered and to collect equipment. I got used to that very quickly, and I find it as a really effective method to get the equipment out quickly.
It's one way of doing it quite safely, isn't it? If you know, number one is getting this particular piece of equipment, then actually everybody knows exactly what their role is as well, don't they?
I agree with Daniel's point, as it's quick. You go in the class, sit down, wait for the register, get your book out. Right, don't make too big of a fuss of it, talk or anything, just get ready for the lesson and always be ready.
I think that's actually really important too in science. You need to make sure that you're listening for instructions, because there's obviously quite a lot of health and safety instructions that are given, so that's quite important. What about getting stuck? Because science can be quite complicated. Have you ever found a topic confusing, and how did you deal with that?
For me, it's probably physics, especially with all the electricity stuff, because with parallel and series circuits, they can get a little bit confusing to remember, especially with the voltage goes and how it sort of spreads around the whole circuit.
I agree with Daniel, but rather than the electricity part of physics, I found the most confusing when we started and we did all of the physics equations. I found that confusing because I had to remember all the formulas to work out certain areas of physics.
The topic that I was stuck on was biology. When I was stuck on it, I probably just asked the teacher, or really just read the work again and see, just to double check if I misread something or if I haven't read it right.
What advice would you give to somebody who is scared to ask questions?
Always ask a question. You'll learn more if you're stuck and you learn something new. Always ask a question. It's not the end of the world. You might not have understood something, but if you ask a question, you can learn how to understand that and build off that.
Another advice I would give is just don't be afraid. Your mates or classmates might they might laugh at you, but remember, that's their view, not yours. And if they do, it's not that big of a deal. You could just tell a teacher, but just ask the teacher at most if you're confused.
Yeah, completely agree with Alex on that one. Really, it isn't the end of the world if you do have to put your hand up, but if it's something you can sort out yourself, either go back through your book or just try and do some mental recollection.
So, what's been the most fun you've had in a science lesson this year?
Well, there's no question about that. For me, it was making salt, because the whole term we'd built up to with all the distillation and filtering and all that all the separating stuff. And then when we actually got to make salt, or sodium chloride to be precise, that was such a fun experience, because you got to use all the aspects of practicals and the aspects of technical lessons like writing and all that. So the combination of Bunsen burners and the mortar that you put on top of the Bunsen burner, that was a really, really fun experience, and I'm glad I did it.
Personally, for me, my favourite practical this year is when we did chemistry and we discovered all about chemical reactions and how different chemicals react differently than others, and the variety of reactions. That has been a really key takeaway from Year 7.
I agree with Albie, as in chemistry we learned a lot of fun experiments and we learned a lot of valuable skills. My favourite experiment was probably the distillation, as there was ink and water combined and we were heating it up, and water has a lower boiling point than ink, so the water got evaporated up and distillated into pure water.
And gentlemen, final question. If you could give one piece of advice to somebody starting science in September, what would it be?
Just don't be afraid. You're going to have so much fun. You might be scared to use all this new equipment, but trust me, you're going to have loads of fun. It's a really fun experience. You get used to it. It might be scary at first, but trust me, you'll have so much fun.
From me, it'd be 2 pieces of advice. Don't be afraid and expect the unexpected. Science can really turn around for you. If you're starting and you're not very confident through it, just stick with it, and I promise you that you'll find it fun and arguably one of your favourite lessons.
I agree with Daniel's point, don't be afraid, just ask questions if you're stuck and always be prepared. You could have a practical at any day and have the most fun out of all lessons.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Science Edit. Whether you're just starting out or already on your science journey, we hope that these insights help you feel more confident and excited about what's ahead. If you have any ideas for a future episode, please drop us a line at comments@thescienceedit.com, as we are really interested in what you'd like to listen to. See you next time. Many thanks.